We all like to think we're getting the most we can out of every dollar we spend. And every year, the Courier takes that analysis to the highest level, executive pay for local CEOs. On the Courier front page centerpiece this week, this CEO, according to that analysis, gives the biggest bang for the buck. This is Steve Foster, the chief executive of Lebanon-based community bank LCNB. Foster had been with the bank nearly 40 years. His longevity resulted in a smooth transition into the CEO role about 2 years ago. Combine that with his comparatively low pay, and you've got this year's Courier champion when it comes to providing the best bang for the buck. So, does he deserve a raise?
Not something I worry too much about. It's good to show a good return to our shareholders, and that's up to the board and the compensation committee how I'm compensated.
Turnover rates for local CEOs shot up in the past 2 years, and not all of them fared as well as Foster at LCNB when it comes to bang for the buck. There's no single reason for that. Business Courier reporter Steve Watkins does the tedious but important research for this yearly package and joins us this morning with some insight. He is with Business Watch producer Kelly Leon in the studio.
Thanks so much, Steve. Thanks for being here.
Sure, glad to do it.
Interesting package, lots to it.
Yeah, thank you.
Start with the methodology, because you have some real specific ways of figuring this information out.
Yeah, it's pretty complex and it takes a lot of time for sure. But it boils down to a few things. First, on the pay side, we look at it two ways. We rank everybody from top to bottom and how much they make. Then we rank them by pay raise or decrease. And we put all those rankings together and come up with one ranking on pay. The number one ranking means you did well. You made a lot of money, or you got a big raise, or both. And then on performance, we look mainly at the biggest chunk of it is shareholder return. That's the biggest thing shareholders care about. How much is their stock going up or down? And then we compare that to the S&P 500 in the last fiscal year. Then we look at return on equity and net income, compare those against all the other local companies, and then compare it against peers and come up with one performance ranking. And then we compare them. Did your pay match your performance? Did you get paid a lot less than your performance or a lot more? And that's how we come up with it.
Wow, that's
yeah.
a lot to decipher. So once you get all that information and you tabulate it, what kind of trends were you seeing this year?
Well, there was one that really jumped out, which is pay for CEOs. You'll see some big numbers on there, but it actually went down 9% on average last year from the year before. And it's pretty amazing, because nationally, at least on S&P 500, the big companies, it went up 9%. So that was one of the big trends. And the other big trend, we mentioned it earlier, is turnover. A lot of CEO turnover over the last 2 years. Almost half the companies have changed CEOs or are about to later this year.
So let's look a little bit at both of those. In terms of the pay, why did it go down? Any insight on that?
Yeah, there are a couple of things. One actually has to do with performance. Some of the companies, in terms of net income and things like that, didn't quite fare as well as they did the previous year. And the other big one, I think, is the turnover factor. When you have a new CEO that comes in, especially one of the analysts told me, especially if it's somebody promoted from within, they often don't make quite as much as the outgoing CEO who's maybe been in charge for 10 years.
Oh,
so
yeah.
some of it is that. And then we had some one-time things. One CEO from a small company got a $7 million stock award 2 years ago. They didn't repeat that last year. It looks like a big drop. That was just kind of a one-time thing.
Okay, so how about turnover then? Why are we seeing so much turnover?
Yeah, there are a few reasons. There's no single reason, but a lot of it, in some cases, it had to do with performance. Macy's Terry Lundgren is a great example of that. They changed right after they really went downhill in terms of stock performance and their store sales performance. There were a couple other companies like that. A lot of them seem to be just, whether it's coincidence or not, a lot of CEOs were turning right around 60, and lately that seems to be the age where CEOs are retiring.
Interesting. So, final question. You guys do this every year. And it's a lot of work, a lot of tedious work, you know.
I can vouch for that.
Yes. Why do you do it? Why is this an important story to bring to your readers every year?
Yeah, it's a real big deal for a couple of reasons. The main one being shareholders that invest in these stocks want to know they're paying a lot of money ultimately for the CEO's salary and other compensation. The Lindners are at the top. American Financial has 2 CEOs. Combined, they make $19 million. David Taylor at Procter & Gamble made $14 million last year. So we're talking about big numbers, and shareholders want to know that they're getting a return for that.
Okay.
The other thing is people just love to read about how much money people make, and when they see this, I get the responses a lot of, it's amazing how much money these people make, or, you know, people are very interested in that. So, so that's part of it as well.
Well, if you're interested in how much money people make, pick up the Courier, because you've got a whole long list. So, Steve, thanks so much for being here.
Sure, thank you.
Back to you.
All right, good insights. Thanks, Kelly and Steve. Well,